Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, Deva Ellepola, the Executive Deputy Chairman of Acuity Stockbrokers, joins us on the program today as we continue to focus on information technology and the capital markets. Then, Jitendran Gajendran, a Director of Gajma and Company, discusses Sri Lanka's new Inland Revenue Bill. And in our final segment, LMD's columnist Shiran Fernando gives us his perspective on Sri Lanka's macro outlook. That's the lineup for Benchmark.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Benchmark, the Big Picture Business Program. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. We're continuing our discussion on information technology and capital markets. And in the hot seat today is the Executive Deputy Chairman of Acuity Stockbrokers, Deva Ellepola. So on the program, we will be discussing some key issues relating to capital markets and information technology, including the main obstacles faced by the market regulators and the prevailing investment climate in the country. Welcome, Deva. Thank you very much for joining us on Benchmark today.
Thank you, Savitri, for inviting.
When you do look at Sri Lanka's capital markets at this point of time, how would you describe it?
I would like to answer that question by giving some statistical presentation so that we feel how the markets have been behaving in 2017. Beginning of the year, the markets were not very active. Markets were taking a laid-back situation where the index fell in the first quarter almost of 2%. But thereafter, I think we saw the second quarter running into June, July, bit down to the third quarter as well, where the markets moved up by almost 11%. So, as of end of July, if you look from an index perspective, the market went up a total of 8% point to point from January up to about July. Since of July, then again we have seen a retreat of the market, and as of now, when you look the year-to-date increase of the market is about 3.5%. So we had a little bit of ups and downs. If you compared with 2015, we had overall 5% negative growth in the market of the index, and if you look at 5 to 6% in 2015, and in 2016 we had a 9% negative growth. So comparative to those 2 years, I think we have had a good start, but I think down the road up to very recently we have lost some of those gains. Primarily the market has been driven by foreign investment. We have about 40% to 45% market participation by foreigners. Now that's a bright spark of the market, I think I would, if I may say.
So to what extent have IT developments actually aided capital market growth in the country?
Yeah, if you go back, I think I've been involved in the capital markets for the past 30 years. I think there were days that we used to do trading in the trading floor in the manual system, where we used to shout out in the open outcry system, where there was a board and we indicated the bids and offers, and then that's how in the pre-90s, before we traded in the trade on the stock exchange. But as you know, we have now gone past that. Automation has done a lot, and there's twofold of the automation, which is the back office, the processing part of it, the clearing and settlement part of it, and CSC was one of the first in the region to automate that. Then we automated the trading system, which was also, and together with the automated system and the clearing settlement, again we were one of the first few exchanges in this part of the world to have automated both together, both at a particular time. So from there, I think that was just to get the trading up to the broker level. This did not go beyond the broker level to the customer level. But since after that, the brokers were very, very keen to take this to the customer level. And we introduced the internet trading somewhere in the 2000s, where we avail the customer to have at his doorstep ability to see data as well as participate by trading on internet trading systems. Of course, I must say that if you look at the penetration levels, the trading aspect of it has not been as much as some of the other markets, like if you take like the Korean market and all, it is hugely driven on internet trading. We have not reached that kind of level, but they do look at information. So it was a problem that information also is not flowing into the customers. We were having the information, only the brokers were used to see the information. But now that we have got over and the information is now flowing to the customers, they have the ability to look at it. And of course, we are moving with more smartphones and all these devices that coming where ease of doing the transactions is at your doorstep. So I think in that way we are up to date.
Regulators these days have a complexity of things to worry about. For instance, they have to monitor markets in real time and enforce regulations, and it can get quite complex for them. What are the chief challenges you think faced by market regulators?
I think we are up there as far as regulation is concerned. I think we have been, if you take the stock exchange, we are a member of the world body, as well as SCC also is a member of the world body. And I think very soon there is going to be a conference held in Colombo regarding discussions on issues that are confronted with the developing markets or frontier markets as from a regulator's perspective. So we have been up there and doing what is required to be treated as an efficient market. But I think from what we have gone through in Sri Lanka, if you look at perspective of Sri Lanka, I think what is the most important thing right now, what we look at, is to bring back confidence into the market.
Speaking of confidence, how would you characterize the prevailing investment climate in the country?
Yes, if you remember, I mentioned that the foreign participation is about a 40-45% in the market. So that's a very great, I think, boosting factor for the capital markets in Sri Lanka, to have the focus of foreign investors in having a market at this stage. So if you look at that, but one will ask why the locals are not investing, So, but there, what I would say is foreigners, the investment time horizon they look at a return is they look at medium to long term. So, and they have the funds and the ability of capital to keep the investment for 3 to 5 years. So obviously the foreigners are looking at this the little Sri Lanka, which is having an opportunity to go from this status of a frontier market to an emerging market. And that happens through obviously the potential that Sri Lanka has. So there is a lot of potential, not that we didn't have it before, but we had the potential, but we need to harness this.
From a regulatory reforms perspective, what barriers do you think need to be removed?
Regulatory barriers, as far as stock market is concerned, everything is being given. Foreigners can easily come in, they can easily go out, there's no question. So there's no capital gains tax. We are thankful to the government for consistently holding that out, because most markets which are in the who are looking at regulation in terms of taxation, capital gains is a deterrent. We have looked it in a different form. We have discussed with the governments of the day, and we have it in the form of a cess that it comes. So there is already a taxation element on every transaction that happens. Capital gains will be only if you make a gain. So the markets have been not performing actually for the last 2-3 years. So there wouldn't have been any tax at all that would have come to the government. But the cess is a easy way of collecting. It's at source. It's collected and given. There's no cost to the government. So we have managed to convince the government that's a better way of doing it. But so that is one thing, capital gains tax angle. In terms of accounts, I think there's a separate account called Share Investment Account, where foreigners can bring in their funds and then take out their funds. So there is no impediment. I think there's one thing that I would like to say: dividend payments in the hands of the shareholders at the moment. When it comes to foreign investors, there's a little issue. Each time a dividend is paid, they have been asked to get a confirmation from the broker and the banker that this money was brought from abroad. That has become a big hassle. We had some discussions with exchange control officials and the central bank, but this has not got resolved. A lot of foreign Sri Lankans living abroad and foreigners are subject to this confirmation every time a dividend is paid. I think we need to get that sorted out. That kind of irritates the investor, because that's not pretty smooth. I'm sure we can discuss and come into a better arrangement.
So we'll be continuing this discussion, Deva, after a short commercial break. So time to hear from our sponsors. When we return, Deva Ellepola outlines the kind of future he envisions for capital market professionals in Sri Lanka. Do stay with us.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
We understand that savings provide for life's special moments. That's why we were the first bank to introduce an incentivized savings scheme, Pathum Vimana. We changed how a nation felt about savings because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
You're with Benchmark. We are continuing our discussion with the Executive Deputy Chairman of Acuity Stockbrokers, Deva Ellepola. Deva, do you believe that just as IT is aiding the growth of capital markets, there's also the threat of cybersecurity? Do you think our capital market firms in Sri Lanka are paying enough attention to this concern of cybersecurity?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier on, the trading was purely in the stock exchange. The trading system, the automated trading system was used, and stock exchange has taken care of it. In the very recent past, in the last year, most of the brokers are now having their own trading systems as well as their back office systems. So it is now real-time linked within the brokering houses, where any funds that are deposited to a client account, share trading account, will reflect in the trading portfolio, and the credit checking will be happening now online. But what you're asking is the external threats from the computer systems. Now, going into these new trading systems, we followed a method of CSC, SCC, and the brokers sitting in a committee, and I was one of the members of the committee. We went through huge process of evaluation, process of choosing the vendors, and we have 2 foreign vendors and 2 local vendors who were shortlisted, and we did check what the practices they have adopted, and they are in other markets. Most of these 2 or 3 foreign vendors who have got shortlisted, they have given systems and they are reputed. So we have given them in the RFP that security has to be is one aspect that they need to check. So currently, as I speak, as far as if I speak of my company, we are having audit going on, and one of the areas is security, the data security as well as the external threats.
Speaking of which, what is the future you envisage for the Colombo boss?
Yeah, I think we have a lot plans on foot, but having said that, past has not been very much to the liking of the stockbroking company. I've been in this industry for the last 30 years. We are just having to buy a stock and waiting for that stock to go up to sell. That's the only opportunity that is offered in the Colombo market. But right now, I think the last 2-3 years and going forward, we are looking at bringing a system called a DVP, that is delivery versus payment, where the stock passes by and the cash passes by at the same time. If you do that, we will also need a clearing corporation, which will be an extension of the central depository we have, which will enable the introduction of other instruments, like where we can do short sell. You may not own a stock, but you can sell it and borrow and return that stock. So to do all those, we need systems and infrastructure in place. So, and I think it's in the very near future we will be having the CCP and the clearing corporation coming. So hopefully we will see the day that we can move away from just buying and selling a share and look at other instruments linked to equity or maybe debt, helping giving the investors more opportunity in dealing in financial assets than just buying and selling a share.
How do you see capital market professionals functioning in this current scenario, especially when it comes to upholding best practices and also financial market integrity?
Well, we, as far as it comes under regulation, because the stock exchange SEC has regulation for individual stockbrokers. In addition, we also had a code of ethics for the members of the CSC, our own code of ethics. So there is, but I suppose which we can improve on them. But also, once the regulator is active and taking a active stance, like they are not like in the past, they have a state-of-the-art surveillance system now which will give you indications of if there's any unusual practice of trading. They do give warning signals, and so that they preempt if any unusual practice is seen, so that they will then refrain from going any further. So I think prevention is better than the cure. So we had issues in the past, so I'm sure now there's a close monitoring and action that is being contemplated by as far as market transactions are concerned. So I think that will help the financial integrity of the market.
So what would be your future outlook for capital markets in Sri Lanka?
I would think foreigners is the key driving point at this moment, and they know when there is market weakness, when there is instability, that's the time the markets are low. So as the famous saying goes, when blood runs in the streets, that's the time to go and buy. So the message is, when markets are not stable and there is markets get affected due to reasons which I feel that's very temporary, very short term. So you should not worry about the short term issues that are happening. If they are doing, the policy direction is correct, which I feel the fiscal and other policy directions are heading towards medium to long term development of this country. So the investors also should take a more medium long term view of the market and come invest when things are down, because when all is right, you will see the markets not at these times. We are trading at 11, 12 times. Some of the stocks are trading at 7, 8, 9 times. So those are, if you compare even with our regional peers, we are still low. So once the policy more consistency comes and more development comes, we've seen more proactive renewal of the projects that have been kind of stopped in the first 2 years of this government is reactivated now. They're trying to do something with those projects, and I'm sure those will develop the financial center, the megapolis, the Hambantota port and all that, I think, and various infrastructure projects, roads and railway. Once we see, people see these things happening and actually coming up, then you won't be able to buy stocks at these 10, 11 times of PE. We have seen PEs going to high as 15 or 17 or 20 times sometimes when everything is fine. So the message is buy when things are not really happening, and if you can see light end of the tunnel, then I think that's the time you should venture into the market and be brave enough to take that stand and opportunity, I would say.
Thank you very much for joining us today on Benchmark, Deva. As always, it's been very interesting chatting with you.
Yes, thank you, Savitri.
We've been talking with Deva Ellepola, the Executive Deputy Chairman of Acuity Stockbrokers, on IT developments as well as capital markets. Stay with us, because on the other side, we have Anushan Selvaraja.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Nearly 60% of all businesses in our country are SMEs. Some of our most growth-oriented financial solutions have been customized to serve this sector. That's why we have invested over 500 billion rupees to support the backbone of our economy. Because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now we're going to take a look at the new Inland Revenue Bill, and joining me is a director of Gajma & Company, Jitendran Gajendran. Welcome to the show, Mr. Gajendran. Now, as I said, the new Inland Revenue Bill has just been passed with a lot of amendments as well. What are your thoughts on the pros and cons of this bill?
The government has an objective for this law. They have an objective to reduce budget deficit. They have an objective to reduce inequality. They have an objective to increase consistency and to expand the tax base, and to expand the economy as a whole, which is very important and it's a focus of the country. But the country as a whole has a question in mind. They want to know if this is a villain or a savior, this law. In the long run, it may be a savior. In the short run, it's definitely a villain. In the short run, this whole law has an issue. It takes a significant learning curve to understand it. The previous law was there for 100 years. Now we have to figure this out in 1, 2, 3 years. It might be not before the next election that we figure these things out. Then computerization system which has come in, called RAMIS, it took 10, 15, 20 years to come. Now it has come and we are changing it immediately. So if you change it, we would assume with the whole pace of things, it will take a couple of years to run properly. Thirdly, the informal sector, which we all want to get into this net, is not going to be focused because the people are going to be stretched. The department has limitations of resources. There are people who understand the law, but not everyone does. So then you don't have the capacity to go and search and find these guys who are evading the law. That is the issue that they have in the short run. In the long run, this law has its strengths. One is capital gains. Capital gains is a tax that some people are scared of. But we have to understand this mentality in Sri Lanka where we speculate to accumulate. It's a wrong principle. When we try to speculate, we can get into difficulty. Now, if the capital gains tax, it's not going to be focused in the stock market, but it's going to be focused on properties. So, if it is focused on properties, it will hopefully prevent people from buying properties purely for gain. They want them to buy property for home ownership, to have a house, to live there, long-term perspective. If that long-term perspective is there, it will benefit the economy as a whole. The other issues that we have is to do with research. Research is not going to come through. Promotion, brand promotions benefits have gone down. Training of people, low-level people, tertiary training the benefits have been removed. Professionals' benefits have been removed. The brain drain that is going to result from this is unquestionable. The overall judge of this law will be dependent on if this law is balanced or unbalanced.
Now, based on what you've just said, Mr. Gajendran, what are your expectations from the budget which is going to be ready in November as intimated by the Finance Minister?
We in Sri Lanka have this idea of trying to attack the same person over and over again. The informal sector which is there, we are not focused. So the new budget will have to focus on the informal sector. The focus should be to increase the tax base by bringing in the informal sector and exempting sectors that you want, and maybe in the future also focusing on research and brand promotion again, because Sri Lanka needs research. We have 5% of our economy should be focused on research. It's nowhere close to that. Other countries are far ahead on that, and purely on that we have a significant disadvantage.
Now, Mr. Gajendran, the audit bill, it's been delayed a number of times. Now, what are the implications of this delay?
So, the audit bill and other laws have their own issues. It's not easy to pass laws. We have come from principles of government, we have changed. We had different types of leadership styles, and now the leadership style is dispersed over 10-15 people. So when you have a dispersed leadership style, things are going to take time, which people have to understand. The only difference is you will have your point of view put out, but someone has to make the call. If they don't take the call, this will never get done. In a group of 10 people, in a family, you can never agree on anything. So someone, either the patriarch of the family or someone else, has to take a strong decision. If they do take a decision, then things will go forward.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Gajendran.
Thank you.
That was the director of Gajba & Company, Jitendran Gajendran. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
When we entered the industry in 1995, a new star was born as a fully owned subsidiary of People's Bank. For those seeking to grow their businesses, PLC provided the seed. We are not only Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company, but also the largest non-banking financial institution. Welcome to a new dawn for the nation. Introducing People's Leasing and Finance, PLC.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Sri Lanka's #1 leasing company is now the nation's largest and highest rated finance company with 2 international ratings. Let us move the nation as one with People's Leasing and Finance PLC.
Gami Pubudua, our microfinance offering, makes it possible for the youth of this country who have a viable business plan but lack the funds to realize their dreams. We are committed to grassroots level entrepreneur development because we believe in banking beyond transactions. HNB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now for a closer look at the latest on the economy. Joining me is economist and LMD columnist Shiran Fernando. Welcome back to the show, Shiran.
Pleasure to be back here again.
As usual, just to start off, give us a brief overview of how the economy is faring at this point of time.
Things are getting much better. The IMF review, I think, though it's sort of reported, as quite negative, there is, I think, space to reconcile and say, okay, there are some positives that the IMF has been talking about, in particular, reaching some of the revenue targets, central bank, letting the currency be a bit more flexible, going out and purchasing dollars in the market, sort of building up reserves. So there have been a lot of positives highlighted in that. And even though we missed out on a few structural benchmarks, which are sort of part of the reform agenda, like getting a pricing formula for electricity or for fuel, the IMF does understand that there is a lot of the political ground realities of actually implementing it, and they are sort of have moved it actually to March and September. So we've seen those kind of trends as well.
In that case, Shiran, how are import and export sectors faring?
So if you look at our exports, I think it's doing much better than last year. I mean, we're not growing 10-15%, but we're growing 4-5%. And what is surprising is what's driving that is actually agricultural exports, namely tea. So even though we have a bad drought, we've had flooding and issues related to weather and the output, prices are actually high, and that has sort of seen the overall value of agricultural exports, tea prices, tea exports go up as well. So that has been driving it, and other categories have seen a bit of increases. Garments yet to see the benefits, I think, of getting GSP plus at the moment. On the import side, we had, I think, a big fuel bill, in particular in the first few months of the month, and that's now slowly tapering off as well. Even things like rice imports was quite high, and we're expecting that to sort of taper out as well. So imports will be higher than last year, but I think the second half might be much less than what we had in the first half.
Now, Shiran, we've had political upheavals, and we've also had the audit bill being delayed and all. How are all these affecting the confidence in our economy?
I think everyone sees that in the sense of impacting sentiment. So the word on the street obviously is these are all negative, but I think the thing that you can take out of it is that we've not had in the past, for example, ministers sort of resigning over allegations or things like that. So these are kind of new phenomena that we're sort of seeing. So even though we're not maybe seeing good governance in its full form, we're seeing sort of strands of it coming through, and that's new to Sri Lanka and the economy as a whole. So I would say yes, it'll have a near-term negative, and you sort of question the authority and whether there can be sort of a trust thing going on, and it impacts investors as well, because that's the number one question. But if you look at a medium to long term, you're sort of slowly seeing accountability coming through.
Thank you very much for joining us, Shiran.
Pleasure being here.
That was economist and LMD columnist Shiran Fernando. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again next time.